So we're just.
No, you're fine. That's what we do. Just people can join.
Right, okay. Oh, I'm online too.
Facebook Live.
All right, so I am Nancy from the Northern Neck Beekeepers Club, and this is Donna. And she just joined us this past year, so she got immediately promoted to vice president. So I appreciated her coming out and helping me, or just being here for support. As I was saying, we do meet. We have a club that we meet on the second Monday of every month at Eastville United Methodist Church. And we meet just to talk about bees and learn more about bees, because it's a never-ending cycle of education. And there's always something to learn, always something more to do, to talk about, to meet and go, and like I said. But we meet each month to tell everybody what they really should be focusing on for the month. So anybody's welcome to come, so please come. We meet at 7 o'clock at Eastville United Methodist Church. All right, so I got a range of people here, so I don't know, where should I go, kids? Any questions? I am a PE teacher by nature, so I don't have any trouble usually rambling and talking. So, do you guys have a question? Hit me with a question.
Too much pressure.
Too much pressure.
I know, you're right.
You see the bees? Oh, I don't have any right now. So you see these bees? These guys were in my hive at home this morning. So what I did was I opened up the hive. So a hive at home kind of looks like this, except it has a top on it and it has a bottom on it. And the bees are just coming and flying and going. And so this morning I put my suit on, which is over here. I've gone to a full body suit. So this is my suit. So I put my suit on because I am a scaredy beekeeper, and I do not like to get stung. So I put my suit on. You guys want to put the gloves on? You can put the gloves on if you want. I know they look horrible, but it's very necessary.
They go all the way up to your shoulder.
Yeah. You can put them on if you want. I even brought a hat I'm gonna let you put on too. That's why I grabbed this one.
What?
You put the hat on too? Let's put it on the right way. There you go. Now you're safe.
Oh, cool.
There you go. You can take those back to your seat
Professional.
and put them on. Take them back to your seat and put them on. Let Mom take a picture of you.
Yeah.
Looking all professional. So yeah, I put all that on and I went out, and they were pretty cordial this morning. So what I do is, this is obviously just called a demonstration hive. So I took one frame out. So this is what my box looked like. So I went and just took one frame out and just kind of looked to see if it was the best one. And actually the first one I picked wasn't the best one, because it didn't have any brood in it. I think it had a bunch of eggs in it, freshly laid eggs. But I've gotten to the age where I have to have a magnifying glass, and I didn't have that with me, so I will take it with me when I go back to make sure it had those eggs in there. So anyway, I looked in it, and like I said, it looked kind of empty. So I put that one back, and I grabbed the next one beside it, and it was, like I said, this beautifully covered frame of brood. So I stuck it. This is the door, so I just stuck it right in there and just closed it up and sealed it up, and they're gonna hang out with me. They're my passenger when I ride. So then when I go back home, I'll just do the same thing. I'll open it back up and just slide it back in the hive. And like I said, I'll take my magnifying glass and make sure there were actually eggs there, because it's very important. And then what you have here is, in the middle, all the white that you see is baby bees. The majority of these bees that you see are females. I did see a male, so there is a male bee in there somewhere. And the male bees, and this, you can actually pass this around too if you want to look at this. You look super cool. Can I take your picture too?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, awesome. I'm going to pass this around too. And what this is just kind of a demo of what really is going on in there. Except the queen is not in there. In this, let me take your picture before I forget and get sidetracked. That is like super cute. Awesome. So what you have going on in here is, I don't know if there's really any eggs. There probably are. So number one is an egg. So the queen, which is number 6. And honestly, this is a very teeny tiny queen. I don't like this demo in this one because it's very small, but hey, you get the point. The queen is usually way bigger, much more noticeable. She is not in here. I don't know if she is. I haven't seen her, but she would not have any reason to be in here because there's nowhere for her to lay. That's all the queen wants to do, is lay eggs. The number 5 dude is the male bee. There's not that many male bees. They're called drones. They don't really need male bees. You need them for one purpose.
I need them.
One purpose and one purpose only. By the end of the year, they kill and eliminate all males because they are not necessary to live through the winter. So anyway, and then, everything you have here is female bees. And the female bees are the one that get the job done. And then the rest of it's just pictures of wax and honey. But it gives you a visual of the actual size of what's going on. So the queen, which again, she's back at home in the box, hanging out at home laying eggs. The queen will lay anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 eggs a day, and when she's in rolling like now, from starting probably like March on, she'll lay like 1,000 to 2,000 eggs a day, as long as all the conditions are well. Can you imagine? I haven't done the math.
It's phenomenal.
It's like how many a minute? I haven't done the math.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a lot of eggs. That's basically all she does. So the bee's job, the rest of the bee's job, the female's job, as we said, the male only has one job, and y'all can figure that out on your own. The male does also, so they do have one other job, and that is to fan. So they will fan because when a bee brings nectar in, it's very moist, wet, and so they will place it in these cells, and then they have to dehydrate it. They need evaporation to happen. So I do understand that the males do help with evaporation. So they'll sit there and flap their wings too. So they're not that.
And still honey.
And still honey. Like they just eat, right? There goes one. There goes one running there. But they basically. They fly out, I guess, every day. I mean, I don't even know. Do they fly out every day and go fly to what I call the red light district? And it's also called, it's truly called the drone congregation area. Yeah. And so the queen will, when the queen needs to mate, and she only leaves her hive one time, and she flies to the drone congregation area, which is the red light district in the sky. She flies to the drone congregation area and she mates with as many males as she can at that time, and then she'll fly back to the hive, and then she never leaves the hive again. Bees are amazing. That's why I got into it. They're just amazing. It's never ending. You can pick a topic, and it's just amazing things, that come from that. Like, the queen laying 1,000 eggs a day, and one bee. I don't know what I did with my necklace. I had a necklace that showed you how much honey a bee makes in its lifetime. And it's honestly probably not much more than what's in that little demo right there. A bee makes 1/4 of a teaspoon of honey in its lifetime. So each bee, if it lives to its full potential, can make 1/4 of a teaspoon of honey. But that's like, and I don't remember the number, I don't know if you do either, a million flowers it takes to make a pound of honey, or a million flights to a flower, or something like that. But it would take, a bee only lives 6 weeks, and it will literally work itself to death. It will fly until its wings fall off. So yeah, these bees here will only live for like 6 weeks, and the bees that get laid and get hatched and are baby bees in February, March, they only live for 6 weeks, and they work themselves to death. When a bee is born, the first thing it does, and there's honestly bees being born, I'm sure. We took the same hive to Montrose, and some kids you could see where one was opening, and so the kids just sat there and watched until it hatched out. They're like, oh, look at the cute little baby bee. So there are bees being hatched out. But as soon as they hatch out, the first thing they do is turn around and clean their cell out, because the queen wants to come back and lay eggs into that cell. So the minute they are born, they start getting to work, and they never stop working. They do sleep. I think somewhere I read they sleep like 2 or 3 hours. I don't know how a bee sleeps, but they do sleep a couple hours a day. But they basically just work, and they don't typically fly at night. So I guess that's when they're sleeping. I don't know.
Usually not when they first hatch.
Yeah, because
I think they were all still on the frames back then.
Oh, right. So as soon as they're hatched, they turn around and they clean their cell out, so that then it's for the queen to come back and start laying again. And then they have all kinds of different jobs that will progress through their lives. So they may go from, cleaning. They can go to, so there's all kinds of different jobs, and jump in and help me because I'll miss a bunch. So like another job is at home, there's an entrance. So there's a hole here where the bees can fly, can go, come and go. Somebody's job, or a lot of them's job, are the guard bees. And their job is to sit on the front porch and make sure that it's the bees that belong in this hive. Okay, this hive smells like this hive smells like this hive smells like this, and this hive smells like this. These bees will not go to this hive because it doesn't smell right. And these bees won't let this bee in because it doesn't smell like their bee. So when you can put the hive side by side, and they only go to their hive. They only know their hive, they only know their scent, they know their queen, they know their pheromone, they know their place, and same vice versa. So the guard bee's job is to sit here and make sure that bees that don't belong don't come. So they'll or other things, hornets or wasps, or, they don't care about ants, because actually on top of this hive was ants. They don't care about ants. There is a little creature called a small hive beetle that is a problem. They cohabitate, honestly. They get along, they will allow them to live there, but they only allow them to live in the corners. I had a hive the other day, I opened up and there was like 5 up in this one corner, and you just take your hive tool and squish them, because they're not, you don't want them to be, you don't want the small hive beetles to get too much. So you do kill them because you don't want them there, but they do learn to cohabitate. So they'll let them in there, but they only let them live in corners, if possible. They don't want them, if they get too much, the small hive beetle can win, and it can kill a hive. So you don't want them in there. But so the guard bees have the job. There's a job of a mortician bee. So their job is they keep their hive super clean, and that's why I keep seeing it run by, and you guys might see it run by. There's some grass in here, and it was from where I closed the door, the grass got hung in there. So there's a bee running around with that grass trying to throw it out, because they don't want that in their hive. They keep their hive super clean. So she's trying to run around and find a place to throw it out, and there's nowhere to throw it out. So it's just running around.
OCD.
Exactly. So they keep their hives very clean. So you can have the job of cleaning. You can also, once you become a guard bee, one of their jobs is to be a nectar collector. So you have the final job that these female bees have, is to fly and collect nectar or pollen. Okay, so they'll fly, and again, they fly until their wings fall off, and typically they'll die out and about, or a bird will eat them, or a car will hit them, or whatever. But if they do die in the hive, then the mortician bee is going to carry them out. You can see them often. They'll carry them out to the front of the hive, and they'll just drop them off because they don't want that in their house. So the nectar collector bee, you have the bees that fly, and they fly to the flower, and they fill their nectar sacs up. I don't know what's the right word. There's a word for it, but anyway, they go and they fly and they fill their nectar stomachs up, and then they fly back. And what they'll do is there'll be a bee sitting on the front porch, and they'll regurgitate that nectar into the other bee's mouth, and then that bee will take it in. And that bee will then come and go up into the hive, and it will spit it out into a comb, a hole. This is empty, but they will draw it out. And so they like to store their nectar up higher. So that bee will then go in the hive, and it'll go up higher, and it'll spit that nectar into one of these holes, and then that bee will go back and wait for the next bee to come back in. So the nectar collectors, they're just steady flying. And it could be water collectors, it could be bees collecting water, they could be collecting pollen. If the bee collects the pollen, they're so cute. I don't have any pictures of them, I wish I did, but we call them clown bees too, because the bees that collect the pollen, they go out and they collect the pollen in their pollen sacs, which they have on their back legs. And when they come back in, it depends on the type of plant that they've been at. They can come back in totally yellow like this. They can come back in yellow like that. They can come back in purple. They can come back in red, green, white, orange. Yeah, I mean, they can, depending on what flower they've been in, they can come back. They'll come back completely covered with big, fat, legs. And they'll come in the hive, they can't transfer that, so they'll come in the hive and then they go and just roll all that pollen off and they'll shove it in these holes too. I don't think there's any in that particular frame, but there's some frames that are covered in pollen. And the purpose of the pollen is, it's basically their bread. It's what they eat to survive the winter. So they need to store the pollen, they need to store the nectar, and that's what they're doing, is they're trying to make their winter stores. It's basically canning, is what I call it. It helps some people understand that. So they're canning to survive the winter, but they're collecting the nectar and the pollen to have the pollen for their bread, their food to eat, and then the sugar and the nectar and the honey is their carbohydrates to eat. So that's what they're doing, is basically trying to survive the winter with their food. We are stealing it, but you're not supposed to take but so much. You need to leave so much, and then they will continue to collect more too. So, so you have bees who are, I said, the nectar collectors. You have a bee, this is my favorite job, kids. There's the queen, obviously. You have the queen that's hanging out in here. She has attendants. So, because I said that the queen never leaves the hive again, so once she goes out and comes back in, she never leaves. So the queen still does have to go to the bathroom. The queen does still get to eat, but the queen's really busy laying eggs, so she can't stop and do that. She can't stop what she's doing and leave the hive to go take care of her business. Bees will not pee or poo in their hive. They just don't. They go right outside their hive. And the first nice spring day, you guys know this, if you're bees, your car is covered in, looks like a little bit of mustard. And that's bee poo. And, but because they do not want to go in their hive. They do, they will not. You know, have you seen it yet? No. But yeah, you'll have little dots of, looks like a little mustard all over your car or wherever, anything. But they do not go in their hive. So the queen does not go in her. She does go in the hive, but her attendants collect it and they take it out of the hive. So the queen's attendants get to collect her pee and poo and take it outside the hive. I think that's a fascinating job. I wouldn't have.
I was gonna say, I think I volunteered.
Right. And how you get anointed for that job, I don't know either. But anyway, so that's a job. What else are other jobs in there? The nurse bees, right?
Royal jelly, if new queen cells.
Right. So you have the nurse. Yeah. So the first job is basically cleaning house. There's the job of sitting there fanning your wings. There's the jobs of feeding the baby bees. There's the job of, so when the queen lays an egg, the nurse bees will go along and feed the eggs wherever so the nurse bees, the female bees will go around and feed it the honey and the nectar and the honey and the pollen so that it can grow up to be a healthier bee. So then they'll feed it and it just continues to grow and it'll make the larvae, which is what that C looks like there. Then eventually it gets bigger and then eventually it's capped, which is what's going on here. And then they'll hatch. And these are mostly females. I don't know that there's any cap. Oh yeah, there's a drone right there. Drone. So the capped drone cell is bigger because the male bees are bigger and it takes a female bee 21 days to hatch. It takes a male bee 24 days to hatch. And it takes the queen bee 16, which again is fascinating because she's the biggest. I don't know why she gets to do it so fast. But they feed her. They feed her, yeah, she's got work to do. We don't have time to wait around on her. They feed her what's called royal jelly, and it sounds really delicious, doesn't it? I've seen places that sell it. I don't know
Great
how.
for your skin. They use it in burn centers.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't grasp how they would collect that or make that or recreate that. There's no way. But somehow, and I've seen it, royal jelly or. So you have your nurse bees. Their jobs is to feed the babies. There's also, and they progress obviously until their last job being the flying field bees who go and collect water, nectar, and pollen. And then again, they'll do that until their last days. And of course the queen's laying, 1,000, 2,000 eggs a day. So there's a constant turnover of what's going on and each person's job, and they change their jobs as they get older. So they, as they get older and older. So there's always, and in a hive is probably anywhere from 10,000 to 70,000 bees. So it's you have a constant workforce in there, everybody doing a different job. But another thing I find utterly amazing is that every bee does its job. And I always say, could you imagine if America worked like that? How effective we would be.
Chick-fil-A at its finest.
Yeah, you know. So anyway, I think that's another reason I'm fascinated by them, because they don't really stop. They keep doing their job. So I recently harvested. What was that?
No, go ahead.
I'm just kind of changing subjects.
I was gonna say, cause the tools and stuff.
Yeah, hive tool. You have to have hive tool. You cannot be a beekeeper without a hive tool. You absolutely cannot, and you need two, so because you're going to lose one, and then you can't go in your hives, because what they do, and I brought that too. All right, so another job is making the wax, and that's at a certain age they get that productive gland going where that actually makes the wax, and they draw the comb out. So again, I just brought these empty ones. So the age of the bee, and they make the wax, and they'll draw this out, and again, perfect shapes, perfect sizes, perfect use of space. They will use up every ounce of the space, but they'll draw this out and make it these perfect size holes. But what they also do, and then of course once it's the correct size, the queen will come and lay her eggs in there. And once they do, they draw all that. But another thing they do is they collect propolis. And I did bring this and for some reason I just collect it. I can't even tell you why, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it's fascinating to smell. It smells just like a pine tree. But what this is, it's basically pine tree saps. And they use that to make a glue. It's just a jar. It means nothing. It's just where I started collecting it. But the propolis is a glue, and that's why these look so bad, is because they're covered in propolis, and propolis is just a sticky, very sticky, and they use it to seal up all the holes. So you have to, in a regular hive, these would not move, because they would be completely glued and stuck and propolized together. So you have to have a hive tool, and the bees need a certain amount of space. And if you don't give them their certain amount of space, they're going to make it. And that's another thing. Again, they're so much smarter than we are, but we think we got this, but they often prove us wrong. But they need certain space, so they keep these together. So you have to use your hive tool to crack them apart, because they're going to use that propolis to glue everything together, because they want everything nice and sealed up tight. And again, they're attempting to live through the winter. So imagine living through the winter with your windows open. It's the same kind of concept. So they're gluing everything together. If there is a space that they don't like, they're going to put this propolis in it. Doesn't it smell great? I don't know, it just does. So they propolize everything, and it's just sticky, gooey, dirty. So you got to use your hive tool to break things open and to pull things out. And you got to be careful, and you got to go slow. If you don't go slow, the bees will not appreciate you, and they're going to get very irritated.
They will let you know.
They will let you know.
Which is why you wear the hood.
Why?
They love your face.
Do any of you go without it?
I will look at them, but I won't mess with them.
Just checking the top out to see what's
I
going
don't
on.
ever, because I learned that it's not a good idea.
You always get one rogue, and they go,
Exactly. Every once in a while, I'll get brave and I'll put this on. But I'm just scared to death. I don't want to get stung. I just don't want to get stung. And when they sting you, they die, so I don't want them to die either. So
A lot of times I don't wear the gloves or anything. I just wear the hood.
I can't imagine it. I completely 100% cover up every ounce of skin. And it's because I've done that whole thing where you're like, oh, I'm just gonna do this real quick. So you throw this on and you don't pull it up
Yep.
correctly, so you're just.
And that's
like
where they're
this,
gonna find it.
And that's where they get you, is that little spot right there. So I'm very thorough. And I tell you another one I always do too, because I made that mistake, was I was actually helping a friend, and we were done. So, you take your glove off, and I took one glove off and there was the bee right there on the glove. And so every time I take the first glove off, I look and make sure there's nothing on the second glove before I take the other one off.
And my bee master, he wears a pair of rubber boots, comes up to about right here,
Me too.
a pair of shorts, and
Shorts.
a tank top,
Yeah,
and
a
just
tank top.
a
Just
handkerchief
a little,
just a little
around underneath his glasses, and that's all he wears anytime he messes with
He's
bees.
crazy. He's crazy. Well, he's a master
A lot of
beekeeper,
people,
so.
yeah.
Well, he's been doing it since he was 13, and he's 82 now.
Yeah.
So he's forgot more than we'll probably ever learn
And
about bees.
imagine what it was like 70 years ago to keep bees. They say, I mean, because now you have the varroa mites, which I think there might be a picture of them. I don't know if I might have taken it out. But you have so many diseases now that take your attention.
Yeah.
You have to treat bees for varroa mites. If you don't, well, you have to take measures. You don't necessarily have to do a treatment. There are ways to do it that are pesticide or chemical-free, whatever, treatment-free. There are people that do it. I am not that smart. I have not figured it out. So you have to keep the bees, you have to keep the varroa mites off of the bees. These bees will have varroa mites. If you want to keep them off, you have to do things to keep them off. I use oxalic acid, which is a it's natural chemical that's in the air. It's not there's oxalic acid in plants, so it's natural. But for whatever reason, again, I can't explain it, I'm not scientific, but oxalic acid will knock and kill the varroa mites, but it will kill a bug off of a bug. I don't get it. I mean, somebody can explain it because it works. So you can do this oxalic acid and it will kill the varroa mites, but it does not affect the bees. So you have to do it, but you have to do it regularly and religiously, and you've got to keep doing it. It's something if you don't stay on top of, the varroa mite will win, and the varroa mite will cause your hives to die in the winter. So and if you lose them in the winter, then you have to start back over. The only way to get honey is to have them come through the winter. So I actually had I had 3 hives come through the winter, but the one swarmed, and then the other one, actually this year, since it's back to all adults, I ended up getting European foul brood. Have you ever had that?
I haven't had the foul
Never.
brood.
I never have either. I've been doing this 10 years, first year doing it. So, and I don't know how, what, when, where, it was a healthy hive, and, most things say that it's the stressed hives. I don't know, but anyway. So I had European foul brood, and
I have a
What?
question.
yes,
What is that?
it is a bacterial infection that affects the brood and larvae.
Okay.
So they don't hatch healthy. They're not, or they don't hatch. The queen lays the eggs, and they die.
Okay.
So you it ends up just totally affecting, and
They
it
they
has,
call it the foul brood because the larva starts rotting in the comb.
and it has a foul
it's-
smell, yes.
The smell is
Wow.
pretty bad.
So
Right.
does that originate from the queen, or it just get into your?
No, they say re-queening will get rid of it, and I did do that, and it got rid of it in one hive, and you have to get rid of all the comb, so you have to get rid of all the old comb because it stays in the wax in the comb, so you had to so I did that, and I got it in that particular hive was fine, and I put that queen in a nuke box with all new comb and everything, and she never got over it. That same queen stayed with the foul brood, so I had to burn it. I know, I hated it, but it's the first time I've had it happen. I don't know. It's very contagious though, like pink eye. And so I've had to be very religious this year on sticking my gloves. I have a pail of bleach water I keep where I am now too. So every time after I'm between hives, bleach water and hive tool and everything before I switch or go between hives. But anyway, I'm hoping it's all over with. But if you lose your hives, you don't end up getting honey. So the one hive, again, it did not swarm. I don't know, bless her sweet little heart. I took her out. I did take the queen out so to keep her from swarming. But this one particular hive has just went gangbusters. And I've got 60 pounds of honey out of it last week. And I will probably get another 20, 30 pounds out of this one particular hive. So, and the other ones haven't given me anything. There's some in the others, but, so anyway, very exciting because that's kind of what we do it for, is the honey reward. I do use the wax to make lip balm, just because you have tons of wax when you make the honey, when you end up harvesting the honey, you end up with tons of wax. So I was like, what else am I going to do with it? So I learned to make lip balms that a couple of the farmer markets at home have it, in Calia. So what else? What else can we talk about? Smoker,
You're talking about the varroa mites.
Yeah.
My beekeeper, my mentor or whatever,
The crazy master and beekeeper
Yeah.
guy.
he actually, he doesn't believe in the chemicals. and what he uses. And so far, I've used it, and I've used wax paper and mineral oil, food grade mineral oil. And you just take a cap full of that and put it in a piece of wax paper, fold it over, and put it right on top of the brood box. Or on brood frames. And they start chewing it up to get it out of there, and they get it all over them, and they start cleaning each other off.
Okay.
The mineral oil.
The mineral oil.
gets mine.
Yeah.
Yes, it would. I could see where that.
And that's all he uses. That's all he'll use. He won't smoke them or anything.
Natural way to do that, I don't wanna spray my weeds.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you can think about as far as passing work. Because we usually put the APR,
Apivar or
Apivar.
something like
That was
that.
ineffective last year.
Yeah.
but
Apivar is a very strong smelling, what is the basis of it? From I wanna say formaldehyde, but that's not
Yeah.
right.
It's,
Formic,
yeah.
formic
Formic
acid
acid.
maybe. But it's very strong, like you have to, I have a gas, like when you do oxalic acid, and again, it is amazing that they don't have lungs, we have lungs, bees do not have lungs, so it doesn't affect them. But that stuff stinks, you have to put a gas mask on, I do anyway, you have to put a gas mask on, and you have to, because you cannot breathe oxalic acid, and it's kind of the same with the Apivar, it's just so strong smelling that it's very strong, but it will kill the varroa mite again, kill the bug on a bug, I don't get it. But I haven't heard of that one,
But we just
So
sort of,
one,
every time I go through the box,
Okay,
the
just
last
a cap
last
full.
thing I'll do is put a piece of
And you
wax
put
paper
another
over
one, do
the
it again.
mineral.
just one per hive,
Yeah.
Right in there.
one
Because
time
they're
per
gonna
hive.
clean the hive no matter what, they're gonna
Right.
try to do.
Right,
And it
Right.
get flattered, I think you said.
Yeah, you
fold it
just-
up.
Yeah, you fold it
Like-
and have to keep it.
Like
from
6 inches wide,
dripping all
maybe
over the
12
place.
inches long, and then you just take one cap of mineral oil, fold it in half, put it in there, and then when you fold it, you sort of smush it
Squish it
together, and it spreads the oil out in the wax
Oh,
paper.
see, I was putting the cap in there, you're pouring
Oh,
a
yeah.
cap full
Yeah,
in
yeah,
your
yeah.
wax
Yeah.
paper.
And then you just fold it over.
I was like,
No,
where
you
do you
just-
keep coming up with all these caps?
Yeah.
Now you just take a cap full of oil,
I hear you now.
put it in there, and squeeze it, and it spreads out throughout the wax paper there.
So as
And
they're
you just-
chewing up the wax paper, it gets on them.
Do you think coconut oil would work as well, or just?
Probably.
I don't
guess,
know.
Yeah.
I know,
He just uses the
I'm
food grade mineral oil
being
because you can get it
taught
every
by
change.
him, so I'm going by what
Right.
he told me. Like I said, he's probably forgot more about bees than most people will ever know.
Yeah, true, for sure, he's done it
Yeah,
for
what-
70 years, like I said, can you imagine, varroa mite's the biggest one lately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, why wouldn't they clean each other? And other animals preen and self-clean. Why wouldn't the bees do that? If they're so clean about the hive,
right.
why aren't they
What they
picking
do,
mites off
the
each
varroa
other?
mite gets, so bees are made, I think there's actually there's kind of a picture in here. Bees have sections, and I don't know how many, I don't know, you guys know how many? So they have sections in their abdomen that the varroa mite gets up underneath.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question, but I would say probably because they can't, there you go. Once they get up in there, they probably can't get back to them. So see, they're like, these are open sections, and the
Yeah,
varroa mite
okay.
will bury itself like a tick up in there.
In between the abdomen and the head,
Right,
they'll get up back behind the wing.
yeah,
But
How big
when
is
the oil
it? How
gets-
big is it?
Very
Varroa
small.
mite?
It's like little itty.
Okay, I should have brought, I had
Can't
one
really
time.
It's about the size of an egg after, what, 2
Yeah.
days, 3 days?
Yeah, that's probably
Okay.
fair. I mean, so you can't, like, there's probably a varroa mite on a bee in here, there's not that many, not every bee has them on there. But you can't look at the bee and see the varroa mite. And also the bees are covered in that hair, that fine hair. And so you can't look at a bee and say, oh, it's varroa mites. And I love it when people put pictures on Facebook. Is this a varroa mite? You can't just look and see a varroa mite. Now, when you do the oxalic acid, you put in the bottom, what's a board in the bottom, and you can see them when they drop, the little teeny, but they're just little teeny. I mean, I think that egg is probably pretty fair. You can tell, you can see if they're shiny too. So they're much different from like pollen droppings or whatever, just dirt, but they're like this shiny little brown, but they will, like I said, bees learn to cohabitate with them too. So they do have them, but you have to keep them at a minimum, because if not, they will eventually, in the winter, the bees get stressed, the bees get sick, the bees will die, and the varroa mite will win. But
I was gonna ask about like managing the mites. Like, do you treat them? How often do you treat them? Like once a month? Once a week?
Me personally, with the oxalic acid, you will treat them I treat more in the fall and the winter.
Okay.
And it's because you want those bees as healthy as you can going into the winter and through the winter, and then in the spring when they come out. So with the oxalic acid, you have to do it a lot more, but it also doesn't hurt them. And
Yeah.
supposedly, so it doesn't hurt them. And you could do it with oxalic acid. The typical way to do it is twice a week for 3 weeks, because varroa might love to live on the capped brood. Their babies are growing in the capped brood also. So the oxalic acid will not penetrate the capped brood. The only way to get them is on bees that are out and about. So that's why you have to do it repeatedly. And if you do it twice a week for 3 weeks, you will get every bee that is eventually come in, been born, hatched out in that 3-week period. They have other ones that you can put, like that Apivar, you put it on the hive and it just has that fume that comes out. And again, they're fanning it around, and you leave it in the hive for like 30 days, 42 days or something, and then take it out. And that helps them too. I mean, there's different ways, but there's others. And the Apivar, the varroa mite has figured out how to become immune to it. So just like antibiotics that we do. And so there's other, overuse, other chemicals and treatments that don't work anymore. So the varroa mite has figured
So
it out.
you're saying the oxalic acid, you can still harvest your honey using that?
Yeah.
See,
Because
the
it is a
apple bar
natural-
you can't. The apple bar, I always harvest, and then after
Right.
I'm done harvesting,
That's
I'll
what
put
we
that
put
in and treat them after, so it doesn't contaminate your
You
honey.
can, I do not, because again, right now the bees are very happy, healthy, and growing, and just abundant and massive. And the best time to treat is if something happens that the queen is gone, like, I have a hive that for whatever reason the queen disappeared. So I really, right this moment, I should hit them with this oxalic acid right now, because they're broodless. Because when you hit them broodless, you hit them 2 or 3 times and you're hitting all the bees, because some are out flying and some are, but you should hit them when they truly don't have any brood. And I should do that. We'll see if I do it though. Because the queen, I looked at it yesterday and the queen is about to hatch out, so.
Now, how do you apply it? I've seen the spoon.
It is, I didn't bring that.
You
It's
heat it,
a,
you use the heat.
I've also read reports that sometimes it will burn the wings of the queen. Have you ever heard that?
not
You
with
gotta be
oxalic
super
acid,
careful.
because again, she's gonna be in the middle of the hive. So she's not gonna hang out, like I said, this is the entrance. She is not gonna be anywhere here. So what
You just
I
heat it
do,
right inside.
yeah, you seal it all up, and mine is a gun that vaporizes. And so you just put the oxalic acid, which is wood bleach, it's a powder, and you put it down in there, and it's a heat gun, and you put it down in there, and then you just stick it in the front, and I take towels and put it around it, but and then it shoots it into the hive, and then it evaporates, or what's the word, spreads throughout the hive. So I have not seen that. There are certain, I know, treatments like Apivar and Formic and all those that will cause the queen to quit laying, but anyway, oxalic acid has become the go-to, and I wasn't as much of a fan at first, because it just is so wicked stinky. I'm like, how can it possibly not hurt them?
Yeah.
But they don't have lungs. So, it has become more, I have become more of a fan, because if you don't treat, they will not survive. And I have been lucky, and for 10 years, I've had at least 1 hive survive. So as long as you have 1 hive, you're still a beekeeper, and you can still keep going. You can split 1 hive and make 5 hives. I mean, that's another thing that's so amazing about them, is that you can take this is mind blowing, you can take a frame of eggs, which is pictured here. So I could take this frame of eggs, and I could put it in a whole nother box over here with some bees, more bees and more frames. Nurse bees and other bee, nectar collectors and all, I could take, 2 or 3 frames, as long as it has eggs on it and they know they don't have a queen, they'll make one.
Royal jelly and feed it.
They will feed the egg,
Well, what is it
royal
called?
jelly and pollen and honey and all that.
Workers or something?
And they will feed it to where it makes,
Laying workers.
yeah, I've had that too. they will feed it that extra royal jelly, and it just makes her bigger, badder, better, and she gets to become the queen. So this hive will now make their queen. It takes about a month for the queen to grow, hatch, go out to the red light district, come back and start laying eggs.
So it's gotta be a strong
Yeah. So
bunch of frames.
it takes a month before it's all said and done, before they're truly going back to being a nice, big, happy, healthy, effective hive. But you can, as long as you have frames of eggs, you can make a whole new hive. So like I said, if you have one queen that makes it through the winter, you can make yourself 5 new boxes if you so choose.
Man's Lake has got, I don't know if you've seen it, they've been advertising on Facebook like crazy. They had so many orders for queens up in Canada. And they had all these forest fires, everything up in Canada, so all these beekeepers canceled all their orders. So now they're trying to get
This
rid of
year
all
is
these mated queens for a lot cheaper price than what they normally sell the queens for. So if you want to do a couple quick splits with a mated queen.
Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that we promote as the Northern Egg Beekeepers. We like to keep our bees local. So when you take our class, we try to guarantee, and we always are successful, but I always have to say try, because there's going to be that time that we're not. But we try to guarantee you that you can buy at least 2 nucleus colonies, which is exactly what I was explaining. You can make a nucleus colony, which is 5 frames of queen, brood. I mean, if you would get a frame that looked just like this, honey, nectar, pollen, so you would get 5 frames. And we try to keep them local, so then those bees are accustomed to our climate, and they're from our area, and they're, what he's talking about is, and if you get a mated queen, that's a different story. But if you get a package of bees, a lot of times they come from Georgia, they come from Florida, they come from Timbuktu, who knows where, and they get shipped to you in the mail. So how happy do you think those poor bees are by the time? Look, these guys are unhappy. They've been out of their hive for 3 hours. Those guys get shipped in the mail, and then and it's a queen in a cage. I have a little one. I think I have one here. So it comes with a queen in a cage like this. So the queen's in here, and it's got a sugar cube right here that she can eat, and the other bees on the outside will eat the sugar out of it, and eventually it'll make it to where she can get out. So this is down in the hive, and so there's bees. They do not have any eggs because they have no queen. So you get your own empty frames, and you put your bees down in the box, and you put the queen down in the box, and what they'll do is they'll eat that sugar out, and then she'll come out, and hopefully they like her. But hopefully they like her. And a lot of packages, they don't like her, and they kill her. And then you have a bunch of bees that have no queen, and then you have to go buy a mated queen for another $50.
Yeah.
I mean, beekeeping's not cheap. In the beginning, it's not bad in the long run, especially if you can make some honey and make some lip balm, you can support your habit, which is what I do. But, in the very beginning, it's hard, which she's just getting started, so she can tell you that one, but it's not cheap. But if you buy bees, and normally a package of bees is what, $150 now?
Some of them.
Well, nukes are going for $200.
Yeah, $200, $250, depending on where you get them.
Because a nuke is gonna give you the queen that they know, it's their queen, they already like her, and it's gonna give you if you buy a nuke, it's gonna have eggs, larvae, brood, and our people that are selling them will not sell you a nuke unless it's fully operational and functional. We're not gonna give a new beekeeper a dud of a hive. Yeah, so the people that are supplying our nukes are gonna guarantee you a successful nucleus colony. If you buy a package, there's no guarantees, and they're not gonna give you your money back, right? If you buy them and they're dead. But anyway.
When I first started, I was volunteered to go to Blacksburg to go pick up some nukes. And we picked up 15 nukes and had them in the back seat of the truck.
Inside the truck. It was too cold to keep them.
It was too cold to keep them outside. So
all right.
by the time we got home, of course,
There's bees all over the place.
they were all over the
was
windshield.
interesting.
Everybody pulling up. So I was like, look at all those
Really?
bees. But I mean, they weren't hostile or anything.
Sure. She had a similar experience. She thought she was queenless, so she came to my house and got a frame of eggs, more eggs than this. and took it, but it had some brood in it too, and you could see them hatching out.
And
Yeah,
then she's handing it to me, she's like, oh, it's one hatching, and then it comes out, and she pulled it out, and put it, and then, there was more, there was like 20 of them trying to hatch all at the same time, and I'm like,
And she
Okay.
said, put it in her car,
I'm
drive
just
with it.
gonna put it in my car and drive, and she's like, oh, they'll probably just go to the windows.
Yeah, they do.
I'm like, okay, so.
I told her though, I said, if we have a
Because it
wreck,
was
we
about a
can
half
forgive
hour
you
drive
any
home.
Yeah,
first aid.
yeah.
There'll be no
rescue
first
people
aid.
are going to help us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you're gonna have to come over
They
here, with
stayed
your
on
broken
the-
leg.
Yeah, they stayed on the frame, and then I just carefully carried them and
Yeah.
put them in my.
I went and bought a whole roll of patio screen and I cut it in sections, so when I catch a swarm and put it in a box and rehome it, I set it in the middle of it and wrap it like a present, so when they find their way out, it's like a puzzle way out.
Oh,
By the time I get to where I'm going, you know, I've got maybe 8 bees out in the screening.
Yeah, and then when you're driving.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
okay,
Yeah,
you had questions, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so how far away from the hive does the pollen bee venture out to bring it back?
Good question.
Yeah, they can go up to 5 miles. I find that hard to believe myself, so I would say more like 3. But they can go 3-mile radius
So
anywhere.
they will go in another bee's territory?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, yeah, they can be,
Okay.
you know, if there's a tree that is blooming and full of pollen, there, it's gonna be covered with all kinds of bees. Think about a 3-mile radius, you know, so if this, you know, this is your hive and 3 miles down there is a wonderful tree, they're going to it. 3 miles on that side of that tree, there's another, you know, those bees are coming to it, and 3 miles on that side of the tree, you know, I mean, they're gonna find a source. And this is another fascinating, so you can see these guys in here kind of dancing and jigging and jiving, and, I mean, these guys are a little more nervous and kind of, you know, anxious because they don't have anything to do. But they do something that's called the waggle dance. And it, to me, again, fascinating. The waggle dance is that bee that's the flying bee comes back and it'll go into the hive and it'll do this dance. And you can see them doing it. It's so funny to watch. I mean, they shake and they wiggle and they wag their arms and their legs and they do this. And what they're doing is giving directions to that wonderful tree that's 3 miles down the road.
Wow.
The waggle dance tells the bees where to go. You know, you can watch them do it, and they're sitting there just shaking everything around.
So
And
will
it's-
another one leave too? Or
So
just-
that bee that went to that tree 3 miles away is coming back in here and telling, you know,
I found
Brother
that.
Joe,
I found the mother load.
or Sister Ann, let's not say Brother Joe, because Brother Joe ain't going anywhere. Sister Jackie is, so she's telling Sister Jackie that this tree's out here, go out here, you see where the sun is, take a left, and then, you know, keep going this far, and, you know, and then it's right over there. So they do the waggle dance to tell where they end up, where the stuff is. So like, I mean, now just a much smaller example, when I harvested my comb, it had a bunch of honey water in it. So I take that and give it back I just put it outside and give it back to the bees. I mean, within 10 minutes, it's covered in bees.
Oh,
So this bee came and found it, and it went back to the hive, and was like, hey, there's a mother load out here, look, it's right over here, you know, it's gonna be right down here, and within 10 minutes, it's covered in bees, because they go back and tell them, like, look, there's a really good source out here, we gotta go, like, come with me, but it's over here, because they've gotta go empty their sack out into a comb, so, yeah, it's amazing.
They also have the scout bee in the spring when they swarm. That bee will go out and find a new home in the woods. And when it finds something, it measures it and decides it's correct, it goes back and then it collects the queen and the entourage.
Convinces the whole
And
crew,
then-
I got a good
And
spot,
then
let's
that
go.
little cluster, maybe a third of the
You've got a
hive
picture
maybe
of
will
them
go with
cleaning up our.
her. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
he will eventually take them to
Pass
that
that
new
around, show 'em.
spot. She will eventually take them to that new
Yeah.
And that's when you catch them, because the queen's so fast, she's gotta go on a diet to leave, to fly.
That's
She
where we
doesn't
were,
fly,
we
so
were
she flies
harvesting
and she
our
lands,
honey.
Then
and
she
we
flies
put
and she
the
lands. So
the
if you can
extracted
catch her in
combs
her
out,
spots where she
and they go in
lands,
there and
then
they
you
clean
can
out
catch the
all of the
swarm.
honey from the extracted combs and stuff.
I'm gonna find, I got 2 cool pictures.
So you keep saying swarming, what is that?
That's when so many bees in the box, the
Yeah.
queen says, man, this place is not big
So
enough.
that's what
Yeah,
And
that's
it
the
tells
find
the
new spot.
scout to go out and
Receive.
find a new spot. And when he finds a
Yeah.
new, she finds a new spot, she'll come back, and that
So-
queen will collect her group and leave.
In this,
But she'll lay eggs, queen eggs, she'll set it up, but there's 2 or 3 queen eggs, and whoever hatches first
It's the bee
or is the
queen.
strongest dominates.
So this
Some
is
people
just-
believe that the dominant
They
queen
leave-
will
they
kill the
leave
rest of them,
Oh.
but
their hive.
I've seen
and
3
they
or
just
4
move
swarms out of
away,
one
and
box
they
in
go
the
find
season,
a
so if they're
new
hatching,
place to live.
they
which
won't
is
kill
Because
the
I
young
actually,
bees, so-
this was from the previous
The new place to
year,
live.
so I didn't have the box.
So this
sitting on
swarm
the
is
fridge,
actually
there was a
part of that
hole
hive.
Down in the bottom.
So you
Yeah,
can
they
take
don't
one,
come
like you
back.
said, one box could be 4
This
hives.
is the only
swarm of hives.
They do not come back, no, they will
Yeah,
not
you
come
can
back
see
to the
it.
hive, they're
Once-
gone.
Yeah, once they
But I
leave.
luckily found them and collected
Oh,
them and put them
leaves
in
or
a hive,
something,
and
yeah.
they liked it,
And
and
they
they
just
stayed.
all went
Last
in there.
year, I did it,
Yeah.
and they didn't stay. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, they measured the box and they said, now this is not right, we're going back to the other joint.
So that's
So
what
when
this
you
form-
see it getting a little crowded, should you thin it out
Absolutely.
yourself?
Sometimes
And that's
yeah,
what she was saying, a split.
Okay.
You know, you
Yeah,
can,
you can do that split, and you have to, that's why spring, in my opinion, spring is kind of brutal on a beekeeper, because you have to go in there every week, more honestly, and make sure they're not getting ready to swarm.
you could tell they're getting ready to swarm because the queen egg looks like a peanut in a shell. They start growing,
This-
it looks like a peanut on the frames. And if you see
Kinda looks
peanuts
like that.
starting to form, she's laying queen eggs and she's getting ready to take off. So you can almost tell before it happens if you're opening the
She
box.
can ready to pack up her stuff.
So
There's a picture of a swarm.
yeah, that swarm that I just showed you,
Oh, yeah.
I took and I basically, because it was so low, lots of times, if it's in a tree limb, you can just kind of shake it and it'll drop right down into the box.
They're not super
Yeah.
aggressive in the
No.
swarm.
They're
But this
pretty
was
calm.
so low, I had to just take gloves
Just put them on the
of
side of the
bees
wall.
and just,
Wow.
that's a lot of bees,
That
right?
was a lot of bees.
Yeah, you
So
generally
how-
won't get stung catching a swarm unless you're really rough.
Wow.
If you're real rough with
Or
them,
you
they'll sting.
pinch them or something and.
Yeah.
Because they're gorged on honey, they gorge before they leave, so they have.
So there's a
growth rates
resource
that
in
are
that.
long.
You see her?
Yeah.
So, everybody's terrified, oh my God, this big ball of bees,
And
but
then that's
they're,
those attendant
They're
bees
the most
there.
calm,
You
you
can pick
will
them
ever
up with
find
your
in
hand.
bees.
yeah.
And try to get them back.
Yeah, you can actually scoop them
So
up
that's-
and
Yeah.
if you get,
Barehanded,
and if
yeah.
you put the queen in
do
there, they're
see
all
I would
over
not
the
recommend
place.
it, but.
Or, yeah, like,
Wow.
yeah, so you are able to sometimes get them
Yes.
back.
Well, that's what the little broom she has right there, if you find them,
Yes.
if you find a swarm on a branch, you put your box under it and just gently sweep them in. And you keep doing that until, when the queen's in that box, every bee will go in that box.
Yeah,
So if you get
every
her in the
bee
box,
does,
That's
Eight.
all.
Cause they smell.
So if they come out of the
smell
box, go
like
back to
Well,
the
they
tree,
just
then you
have
know
certain
she's in that
jobs.
tree still.
and
They
get them.
change.
So within 6 weeks, they can have like 4 or 5 jobs.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, they change as they age. Their job titles.
Yeah, like,
And
They
they
get
don't get the
promoted.
credit that people should give them. They see if you're mean or rough or, they
They
see
remember
you,
faces.
They know you,
Ah.
they recognize you.
Yeah.
When
Smell.
one
They
stings you,
smell
it
you,
leaves
yeah.
a
If you're
pheromone.
afraid, don't.
Every bee will come and try to sting that one spot. So if you get stung, you need to buff it out, or you put something on, or you need to just walk away.
So that's why when you're out and about and the person that's always fanning or swatting.
Yeah,
they're the ones getting
always
stung.
come to
Yeah,
them.
always come to them.
They're the ones gonna get stung.
Oh, they are
And they don't
tattletale.
like- they don't like the color black
You and
either.
looking
Yeah,
at you,
'cause
and
it's
start
hard.
swatting.
Because they don't like mayors. They don't like black. Do you do
Yeah.
that? That's why
Black,
beekeepers are
red.
white.
Yeah.
Black and red
They
are
do,
the two
that
colors.
black is a bear, so they don't like the color black.
Oh.
You don't wear black
Can I-
stuff.
Can I ask sort of a procedural question? My name's Tom, I started my hive 7 weeks ago, so I'm going through the early phases. I got a brood box, one super, and I'm feeding. Now, that's my question. I got mine through Jeff Allen, Hive 5, and he says
Okay.
feed. And I said, well, how long? As long as you want. But doesn't that demotivate the bees to go search? If they're
It does
getting
not
plenty of food right there?
Demotivate, but what you do need to double check is make sure that they aren't overfilling the comb with sugar water. The queen needs spaces to lay. So
Yeah.
if they now have plenty of cat broods, you say you have 2 boxes? So this is considered a deep box, just,
I just had one super for them to start building, a store of honey, for example. And,
right, so they're just in 1 box right now?
well, I just put the second,
The second one,
super,
okay. Okay.
last week, so it's
Then
really.
well, since you're still feeding them, they will continue to make the wax and make, to be able to draw the
Oh,
comb
yeah,
out.
when I examine them, there's plenty of comb, there's plenty of
Right.
wax, they're going to town.
Yeah, as
And
long as you
my-
I think if you added that second box on, you can keep, do you have to keep feeding? I would say no, no,
Once they're oriented
right.
to your area, and Now they can go out forage
Yeah,
because they know.
and
Right.
yeah, I see them out
I
and.
mean, I personally would say stop for a little while, but that's, and this is
Okay.
also a running joke. You ask 10 beekeepers a question, you get 11 different answers.
Yeah.
Well, that's
true.
what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Because my friend also got started with Jeff, so I'm getting the same Jeff Allen advice
Uh-huh,
through other sources. So I'm going back and reading other books.
sure.
And the other books are largely silent on feeding.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
And again, it's a personal opinion.
Yeah.
But right now you have, y'all know what Japanese knotweed is? And I have to say it, Japanese knotweed, because the guy that told me what it was, he has a South African accent. The Japanese knotweed is this highly invasive, wonderful plant that provides awesome nectar for our bees. It's all over the sides of the roads. It is
Yeah.
blooming, getting ready to bloom now. And so that is an excellent nectar source. What is it? Mimosa trees also highly invasive, but they're a wonderful nectar source for our bees. So, privet is still blooming because that
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
is so annoying. There's another
Elderberries,
one.
the elderberries are crazy. People don't even realize until they start looking for them that they naturalize. It looks like a Queen Anne's lace, like this big.
Yeah.
And the bees are working the elderberries. They
Uh-huh.
love it. So there's plenty of stuff.
There's
Yeah,
plenty of
yeah.
stuff out there now, but it does in the next, July is when the true nectar flow shuts off. Now, there's stuff out there, zinnias, sunflowers, clover, I mean, there's stuff out there, but it's called the dearth. And I didn't believe it was a thing. I'm like, it can't be a dearth. It's the prettiest time. There's so many flowers out there. But the flowers are not what's providing the best nectar sources. That's why spring is the time to collect honey. We collect, now's the time to collect your honey because spring has your trees and all your trees are your major nectar sources. So you need tulip poplars, the black locust, the maples, the willows, pawpaws, yeah. Your tree, hawthorn trees, linden trees, sourwood trees,
Hollies.
holly trees. The trees are what are providing the major nectar. So if somebody ever asked me, what do I need to do to help bees? You need to plant a tree and a pollen nectar tree, something that flowers. Cherry trees, choke cherry, which is a wild growing cherry. They were so wonderful this year. For nectar sources. So if you want to help the bees, you got to plant trees, honestly. It's, you can plant flowers, and I do. If I plant new plants in my yard, I make sure it's going to be a flowering tree for
Bee friendly.
bee.
I had an experience. We had sugar maples in our yard. Sugar maples, they tap for syrup, right?
Yeah.
Well, you got the little sap stuff, the birds that peck into it, and you've seen the little holes around your trees. Well, in the spring, when the sap starts running, you see the sap running black down the trees. Well, that's the time of the year when most bees are running out of food. In February, they're dying, they're starving.
Yeah, they love
So the
that.
sap's running. If you have a sugar maple and the sap's running and you have bees, they will swarm to this tree.
Yeah,
And I had a sugar maple and they were all on the trunk getting the sap out of the sugar maples because that's all they could get. There was nothing.
Yeah.
blooming.
Mahonia trees, it's not that big. I have one now, it's about this big, but they bloom in December, in January, which is unlike anything else. So you want to get the stuff, which I actually gave you guys one of those, that bloom progressively. So if you're going to plant, you need to plant things that are going to bloom in January, and things that might bloom in July and August that are typically not very good nectar sources. So the linden trees supposedly are the latest, bestest bloomers. So I've tried planting some of those, but they say they don't bloom for years. But
So how hard is it to get started? Like,
You gotta take the initiative.
let him answer that. He's
yeah, I mean, seriously, how hard did you find getting everything set up, and really, how long did it take you to learn about it to get ready to set up?
Well,
You're still
that's
learning.
never,
And they
never.
started, and
20, 30 years later, you're still.
he started me with the basic, he showed me what he had. We took it apart and examined it, looked at the bees, and I said, okay, that sounds like fun. So he told me to contact Jeff Allen, I-5 in Tappahannock, and I ordered the box and the package. And so I had the boxes over the winter, and when Jeff called and said the bees are here, I said, okay, I waxed all the frames and got ready, and then we started them about April 22nd. So we're not quite 8 weeks, but Yeah, they seem very, a good package,
Oh, that's a happy
the queen's very happy, and my guys are building lots of comb.
Right.
I was worried I was too late, adding a super. Oh, yeah, they were building comb up under the feeder
Yes.
tray, so.
Right.
You can get a mentor to come in and help you.
That's the best.
Yeah.
That's-
Like she was saying, if you go to the club and they pair you with somebody, if you have a question, then you can ask them.
You got
They
a
can-
source to go to.
I still call my mentor 10 years later, and he's the one that said Japanese buckwheat. And
Don't
he's just a brilliant man. His name's John Olivier, and he actually makes those oxalic acid gums. He makes them. He's just a brilliant man. But I still every once in a while I'm like, John, what's going on? I've never seen this before. I don't understand. What do I
Because
do?
you're always gonna see something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Because they're, I mean, these thousands of years, and, you
Okay,
know,
well.
they've been doing it without us for
I'll
thousands.
tell you what, the last time I called them,
That's
I
your
had a
pet.
swarm, I'm in my yard, I see them swarm, they're all just out, just going nuts, and if you ever see a
I call
swarm,
it the tornado.
it is a tornado of just frantic
never seen
activity,
those.
and they're just going nuts. And so I'm in the yard going, all right, pick a spot to land, I'll catch you, you know, and they're
Hopefully it's
just.
low.
Exactly, so I'm watching them, and they kind of start gathering around this tree, and I'm like, all right, is that gonna be the spot, you know, so they're just doing their thing, and they're gathering. The next thing I know, they all go right back in the hive.
Queen wasn't ready to go.
What the heck was that? Well, it was a virgin queen who evidently, he says, went out on her mating flight. And they thought she was swarming, so they went to go swarm and follow her, but she was going to take care of other
You're
business.
going to the red
So
light
they,
district.
the red light
Yeah,
district.
she gonna
And
be like-
so they were out here just confused as could be because she's gone, and so they were all just, like, what do we do? So they all just went back to the hive. That's what he said. So,
Practice run.
This spring, we were, a buddy of mine, we worked the bees together, and we were working just one box, and like I say, the next hive was that far away from it, and we're working this one box, and all of a sudden, they start coming out the other box.
Rolling out of it too, when they come
Rolling
out,
out.
it's crazy.
And they just, you know, the whole tornado thing right there coming out, and we're just sitting there looking at it, all right,
It's so
where
fascinating.
are you gonna go?
Yeah.
And they just, they went
And you
over,
could be
went
right
over the
there
pines
in
and went into the
tornado.
thicket, and
They
it's
don't
like,
mess
okay,
down.
we can't follow you in there.
I'd be sad.
They never did come back. so-
I watched one just fly.
It is
too. I was
nerve-wracking.
like,
It is.
great knowing you.
Just like dogs, if you're afraid, you put out a smell.
Yeah.
So you just gotta chill, stay calm. just
And
let
cover
it
up
go.
completely.
And that's actually, when you got your suit on, you do feel more comfortable,
Yeah,
because
you
you
do feel
know
more
you can't get
confident.
stung, so you're not gonna be sending those.
Yeah.
And they will hit your,
Oh,
Yeah,
they
they
will.
will,
Yeah.
they will ping your face.
and you're like, all right, I just pray I zipped it up right,
Yeah.
you know, it's, but, you know, so they
Don't stick your chin up against your neck.
I've done that. I've been over a couple times and my chin right on the.
Ah.
Yeah.
And usually they get you through something that's
Yes.
not as direct of a shot, it's
Yeah.
not as painful.
Okay.
You can get stung through the stuff, but it's not as
Yeah.
painful because it's not as direct of a
They
shot.
do sense that I'm relaxed. They'll sit on my
Correct.
hand.
And that's when you
And
sit
if
here right in
you're-
front of it and they'll just buzz all
And if you
around.
try to go, I just gotta do this,
Yeah, yeah.
they know
They
it.
sense
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
They,
yeah.
they are agitated. If you go in
They
there
won't
and you're
slow
kind
down.
of and aggressive,
Moments, you know?
you cannot be in a hurry. You just have, and you cannot do it during a thunderstorm either. They do not.
Yeah,
like
they
it.
get aggressive.
Or windy. They don't like windy.
Yeah, I only got
Wind.
stung once, and that was when I was putting
Yeah.
the queen box in at first. And I was taking her from the shipping crate, putting her in the brood